Let's talk about mentorship in particular. What got you into wanting to be a part of this initiative that we're doing with the Fitness Mentor Network?
I guess it's a multifaceted passion project for me, and it's been developing over my career, inspired by mentors that I've had. I don't think any of us can really get as far as we want by ourselves, and we have aspirations for what our goals look like at the beginning, and those change shape pretty frequently in our career. And I would like to think that shape improves over time, carving and whittling a project into shape as we go. And it's those mentors that I've had in the past that have helped me refine my pursuit of my career and my passions that have made me want to do the same for others and share their experiences and my experiences that have grown from theirs.
Yeah. And I think all of us in the business, there's definitely a swell of support for it that people feel passionate about it. Why do you think it's been more of an informal process in our industry versus a more formal process?
That's a good question. For me, it was I was actually lucky to, I wouldn't say lucky. It was very targeted. I put myself in the position to have more formal upbringing, if you will, of development in this career. I went through the bachelor's degree in the kinesiology department, specifically geared toward fitness management. I went through multiple unpaid internships, sacrificing a little bit for the knowledge base and the understanding that there's other people that have done it. And I don't have to always recreate the wheel. I can learn from their successes and their failures, and then hopefully pick up the ball or carry the torch and continue from where they're at. Though most people probably don't have that luxury to completely go into unpaid internships. I didn't really have the luxury either, but I knew the value that it presented. So the formality of moving your way up the ladder in the fitness industry is nearly non-existent. As you said, why has it been so informal? This industry, exercise and fitness is like a tangled web or a rat's nest, a bird's nest, if you will, of where you can go and what you can do. I think a lot of us end up working alongside colleagues in departments that may not, and for companies that may not be in the exercise and fitness industry whatsoever. So we're always creative in the way that we contribute. And for that, a lot of times we also feel a bit siloed in where we're at in our career. And so because there's so many variety of options outside the typical personal training, fitness management, box and gym, the primary thing that most people think about in the fitness industry, there's a whole heck of a ladder and maybe more of an obstacle course that you can climb and sort your way through. So when it comes to development and the steps that you need to take to make a successful career in this, it's not a clear path, and it takes a heck of a lot of perseverance. Takes a lot of grit to make it through. I'm at 17 years in personal training specifically, or as a personal trainer specifically, 18 years in fitness, in general fitness. I've worked in clinical settings. I've worked in athletic settings. Worked obviously in the commercial, regular setting, in corporate wellness. I've dangled in a little bit of everything because I know that the skill sets that are present in those positions are slightly different. And so it's a kind of vague path to what it takes to become successful in fitness and wellness, or fitness and exercise specifically. But when you bring that wellness component into it and the well-being movement, we're so crucial and need to be essential employees in this industry and in this society and the world today. But that path has been hard to develop. And with the many years, all the way back before the Arnolds and the Richard Simmonses, and there was the Jack LaLanne's, and there was the national presidential challenge. We've had decades and eras of fitness that have come and go, and fads and trends that have come and go. And so the messaging makes it difficult for you to find one clear path. The fitness industry itself has taken so many turns that it's a tough place to navigate.
What resonated with me was vague pathway. I think that's one of the best things I've heard actually about the description of it. And you brought up another word, essential. So obviously, we went through the industry has taken a pretty hard hit
Right.
from pandemic. And what was it about that time, maybe that, or what? Let me rephrase this. What is the industry like, in your opinion, after that time? And maybe talk about the destabilization of the industry and how we could stabilize it a bit more, not just through mentorship, but other things you may see that will help the industry become more essential.
Definitely rocked all of our boats when the facilities, the brick and mortar businesses were shut down. Those people who were vested in that really had to find a way to pivot and use that creativity, that problem solving I was mentioning, um, to continue to engage and connect with their clients, their tribes, their community. Luckily for me, in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of leniency to use problem solving and test and pilot, just like we did together, going into it knowing that, hey, we're going to do the best we can, but we know that we can refine this going forward. So we were able, in the cancer recovery programs that I work for in Sacramento here, we were able to make the pivot pretty quickly with a strong team of experienced folks and go online for the following year and a half or so. That's a long chunk of time for business owners or business operators to be without their brick and mortar. And that's where the fitness industry is. That's our bread and butter, is gym memberships and personal training and connecting with people in person. So it was probably a pretty, as you said, destabilizing or maybe even very dramatic time for a lot of people in this industry, where the job security, which is always a little bit freaky, as we were talking about in fitness, but there it was just completely gone, just swept out from underneath us. The ability to make ends meet. Those are things that we deal with as fitness instructors every year, but nothing when your facility shut down. So people had to use that same creative problem solving that we do day to day, every moment with a client, every session, every time that we have someone come in and they spent 3 hours working on the yard yesterday and about to make adaptations to their program. That's, I think, as an industry, we were slightly prepared for this, not to the level of what it took to come back from it. But again, with the truths that we've seen in the past in the fitness industry, from the Tybo and the P90X and all the in-home training that we know exists and is very effective, a lot of people were able to make that shift. And I always try to spin things just like mentorship. I've had a lot of great mentors that have pushed me, challenged me to refine my skills and get better. And I've had some not so great learning opportunities that have also challenged me and pushed me to get better. And I take them all as learning experience. So for me, the pandemic really opened up doors more than they closed them. There was, I trusted that there'd be a time when we'd be able to go back in person, because ultimately there's just, for some people, it's a whole culture of training, and what they need to maintain their motivation and accountability is that social engagement with a brick and mortar facility. And so I expected, especially in the American culture of fitness, that was going to come back. But I actually didn't go back. In the cancer realm, in cancer recovery programs I work in, I do work a couple of classes that are in person, but I took my whole business online and went virtual. As far as I was heading that direction already, I was creating an online program and platform because sustainability and scalability of my business was just not working, driving to every client's house. And
We're like the same guy. We were doing the same thing, and we did the exact same change too. It's crazy.
yeah, you had to do what you had to do to get by, but ultimately it wasn't gonna become a business model that I can make a career out of myself. And so I had to constantly, I held 3 or 4 jobs at that time, one independent contractorship, 2 employments, and then my own clientele load. And so it's always been a grind. Nothing really changed in that mode with the pandemic. I've always have had to try to be ahead of the curve and constantly trying to be creative with the way that I deliver services, give people the structure and accountability, the motivation, the knowledge base that they need without maybe knocking on their front door. And so it was a great opportunity for me. I think it was a great opportunity for us as an industry to say one of the common things that one of the coaches I work with in the Cancer Foundation says is something is better than nothing. And so when it came down to closing doors, literally closing shop for some businesses, they found some way of continuing to engage. And now we have levels and layers of fitness services from that weren't there before. And we can customize or be a bit more individualized in our approach to open the doors and make it more accessible to folks who may not want to come into the gym, for folks who may not be able to come into the gym, may not different barriers that exist in people's pursuit of exercise or fitness. And along with that, we can gear the service a bit better toward probably the population that needs it the most.
Yeah, I agree with that. I found it was like 2017, I went live virtual of my business after 17 years of in person. I never went back either. I
Yeah.
found it to be incredibly positive for me and my own lifestyle, but even more positive for all the people I work with. Is
Yeah.
it created a currency, it created more time. And for the
Mhm.
lot of people I work with, time is their greatest currency. It's the thing that destabilizes their life the most,
Oh, yeah.
is not having enough time to do the things that they want to do. And that was the same for me too. I wanted more time to do, like, there's zero way I could do this mentorship program if I was in person all the
Yeah.
time. It would be impossible for me. I just wouldn't have enough time. So, but I was also motivated. I was in a committee meeting and one of my colleagues said, "This online thing's just a fad. It's a joke. It'll go away anyways." And I was like, why would you want it to go away though? Like, it's another entry point for people who, and a lot of clients don't want to go to gyms. They don't even want to leave their house. We're missing out on these people and
Yeah.
we're giving them a really great pathway for that. But what can we do? Like, so now we're in this phase of we're trying to help our colleagues, right, to get this career that is hard. It's a vague pathway. How do we get our colleagues to make this resonate with them? The importance of being mentored by another person in our industry that's really looking out for them.
It is it is an industry that has a bit of the dog eat dog mindset, unfortunately. There are probably more times than not that I've worked with colleagues, good or bad coworkers, positive or negative, that have held on to their ideas and their collaboration for fear of missing out. There's a little FOMO. And I think we've got to understand that exercise, especially again, for those who need it the most, the people that we want to engage with are the people who need to just get started. And that's where the biggest impact in people's livelihood or quality of life and livelihood come from, is moving from inactive to active. That's the biggest health change that we can make, especially in our culture. Those folks don't need the complexity and yeah, maybe some cheerleading, definitely some motivation, but they don't need the wild flair that the fitness industry has become known for. That's what scared me away from going online. I was very hesitant when we had to make that flip in the pandemic and go online, especially with cancer survivors and patients coming out of their treatments, really timid emotionally and psychologically, but very deconditioned and high risk physically. Going online, as you said, after 17 years, at that point, I was 14 years into personal training. I refined my coaching skill set. I was really proud of what I had accomplished in group training, from strength and conditioning to the heart rate monitored based style training to the big flare of group training in facilities like Lifetime. And I was good at what I did, and I only had seen online the Insta influencer type of fitness programs. And I was like, I am not going to be that guy. I need to make sure that there's a better quality of service being delivered. What I did and what we did as a team is we decided, okay, what can we do well? And I think that's where we need to go with helping people find their pathway is instead of starting with what are the huge goals and aspirations, we want to keep those in mind. We want to write them down. We want to pursue them as our long-term goals. We say, what can we do now with what we have? And it's because there's that hesitation to want to share ideas and collaborate. It's become very hard to connect with others. However, when you open that door, and what I've found in the past couple of years, I've been very fortunate to start connecting through LinkedIn with folks like yourself and with other very heavy hitters in our industry, people who are making big moves in national associations, leveraging advocacy and creating new businesses. So awesome people that I've been able to communicate with. And if I'm willing to open the door and explain my experiences and my pathway, most people are willing to offer their guidance and advice. It's not a closed door. It's not a competition. And unfortunately, a lot of folks coming into the industry feel like they have to be competitive. Unfortunately, on the double side and even more exponentially, a lot of our business models pin us against each other, especially in personal training departments where there's incentivization to sell more, to build the volume of sales that it requires to have a decent salary. And so you have to, it's, as I mentioned, the dog eat dog, or it's a pool of sharks when it comes to some of the settings. And so those experiences, unfortunately, create a lot of burn, a lot of turnover in our industry. But I know that's changing. The teamwork and the understanding of professional development and the sharing of skills and the workplace environment and just workplace wellness, the understanding of what that means for us who work in wellness. Because I loved how Laura mentioned in her podcast with you, how, and you both talked about how important it is for us to take care of ourselves because we're always taking care of other people. And so that I'm seeing a shift in the culture. Along part of this initiative with the Fitness Mentor Network is to drive forward that type of collaboration and that understanding that we have a mission. We're all on the same team here and we have a place. And there's a lot of lucrative opportunities for us if we develop our skills, refine our services and our approaches to making a difference in people's lives. And you got to do it pursuing passion. So the direction for me is always going to be to find someone who has passion and try to emulate what they've done and learn from what they've done. And I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I would say. I know for our initial round of the mentorship program, we had a lot of people signing up to be mentors, not as many people signing up to be mentees. I'm pretty well a veteran in this industry with a lot of experience, and I immediately signed up to be a mentee. I have no problem saying that I can learn from somebody else. Now, I've developed a lot of coaches and instructors, but in the same light, with my own clients, I look to them and watch what they've done in their industry. I work with mostly seniors. One of my clients is my biggest mentor and inspiration for entrepreneurship. The grind that I've seen this guy go through in the last 10 years, and then he did it for 17 years prior to that. The accomplishments of others, that's what I love about group fitness is that I would say it's an environment where you take a hand and lend a hand. And I think that's what we need in the fitness industry is the ability to say, I'll celebrate your victories with you and I'll help you through your struggles as well. As long as you're doing the same for me and it's a two-way street, that's how we're going to get ahead. That's the beauty of community and building an industry that specifically collaborates and is coherent and has some consistency, which is what we've been driving toward in this professionalization movement, where in the past, it's been very segmented and very discombobulated. And so now with this drive from all of our primary certifying organizations, I feel like there is finally some doors opening for us to see that we can benefit from working together. It's not a competition. So it does take a bit of humility to understand that everyone's experiences are valuable, whether they're positive or negative. We can learn from it.
Yeah, that was well said. And I thought as you were wrapping that up, and one thing, and I think I like to be, I'm a very transparent person. I like to be transparent. I don't like to hide behind things and go say one thing and then the other hand is doing the other stuff. I think with this process, and Aaron, because you've been involved with us from the beginning with the pilot program, the debriefs, the advisory committee, this is hard work. It's like really hard work. And I was telling the ladies the other day, as I think is we're slogging through a massive distrust right now.
Yep.
We have developed an industry where we massively distrust each other.
Yep.
And so getting people to, but one, believe this is a very noble, non scammy thing is really hard,
It is.
really difficult. And I'm always telling our team, like, listen, this is going to be really, now we're in the really hard phase. Really, it's great when you're building an idea and stuff, but there's also a wall up and it is breaking down, but it's like brick by brick.
Yep.
And it's getting people to trust that this is literally for the good of our industry, for the professionalization movement, for the essential movement. But in all transparency, we've had a lot of bad actors in our space, and
Yeah.
we continue to have a lot of bad actors in our space. And that always makes it harder for the good things to break through
Mhm.
and people to see it. So I get the hesitancy and the difficulty. And when we approach a lot of organizations, we talk to tons of people. We've given so much of our time. We'll continue to do that. But I think that if you're always used to being treated poorly, you expect to be treated poorly
Yep.
and
Right.
expect bad things to come into your life. And when something good comes into your life, it's hard to accept it
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think that's a large part of what we're dealing with too, is breaking through that ice. We're chipping away an idea that's never been fully realized in our industry. And I try to caution everybody working with this, don't get disenchanted about it. We're literally chipping away at an idea that's never been fully realized.
Yep.
It's
Right.
going to take time and changing and evolving it and pivoting this and that. And so that's my 2 cents on that.
You're right. The trust barriers between as colleagues within our own industry are echoed out to our clientele, to those who we're targeting, to our other potential partnerships. Where I work in the medical fitness realm, the especially oncology, exercise oncology, trust has to be established. That I'm fortunate that 9 years ago when I started, the foundation I worked for was already 11 years in operation, 6 years, I believe, as a nonprofit foundation. So when it's nonprofit, you develop a layer of trust pretty quickly. It's no cost to our cancer survivors to go through our initial program. Big layer of trust was that scammy feeling that I've been with personal training sales, which is what I was doing prior to this, was heading up departments and doing personal training sales. I believe that portion of my career was probably the most valuable. Maybe not really. I really value my education but and the years that I've put into it and developing the experiences, but the ability to build value and present that value to people through whether it's through fitness or through partnership, mentorship, whatever it may be, to ask questions, open doors, and reshape your message toward that person and what they need to hear, toward that partnership and what they need to achieve. Those things that wasn't taught in school. That wasn't what I learned in the sales game or in the entrepreneurship game. And that I think is what we need to do to make it more accessible to everyone, whatever part of whatever step you are in your journey and in your career, the value is there, and you gotta be willing to get outside your comfort zone, try to learn something new. That's something that we do great as an industry is continued education. But because there's so many different avenues for that, so many different organizations, that has again pitted us against each other a little bit, thinking that I'm a level above you and my experiences are unique. The reality is, we all have one goal. We want to help people become more active, more fit. We want to change their health status and their ability to hopefully come back and see us again. That's the whole idea. A fitness journey for our clientele should take different pursuits and avenues over time if we want them to stick with it. Referring out is something that we do well in the organization that I work with. It's something I've always done well. When it was first developed or first learning this through Indiana University, Kale Kennedy Armbruster was probably my most impactful mentor back in the day, gave me a lot of opportunities in class and outside of class to start to develop my skills. That that experience just created that understanding that trust and collaboration is going to be the heart of my success. And if I don't open the door for trust and collaboration, if I don't speak the ideas that I think are brilliant and great, whether they are or not, then no one's going to know. And there's not going to be any movement forward to that. I will don't tell her this, and I wasn't planning on saying this, but it just connected in my mind with another story I often tell my wife. It's been a great mentor as well. My wife, I came through school having studied physical sciences, and I liked a lot of evidence for why I was going to do what I was going to do. And maybe I was a little bit critical because of that. And my wife has a deeper connection with spirituality and positivity than I did. And the power of positivity and the law of attraction was something that my wife really instilled or helped grow in me over the years to change the way that I approach relationships. I think trust is reciprocal. If you trust others, they develop a trust in you. And so that ability to not hide behind a wall thinking that this is my job security and I'm going to hold on to it, opening that door, having those conversations, the brainstorming that I was able to do with you all in this pilot program, I mean, the conversations that we had were just a thrill for me. They were so exciting. I'm one of those who feels a bit siloed in my area right now. The foundation I work for it has been ahead of the curve when it comes to cancer recovery and exercise, and yeah, that in the research is just now coming around. In the medical field is just now starting to look at what a difference it makes to get people on an exercise program. However, we're very small and very mighty. And so I definitely have had just an enlightening experience being able to connect with other industry leaders and just brainstorm, just talk. That's really talk about our experiences and build from, again, from the success of others, the victories, and lending a hand to help others help overcome hurdles and objectives. I think that is where the industry is evolving to, and that will help us develop the trust for our clientele, for our members, for our partnerships, for our communities, and take this to another level of essential, as an essential service for our communities.
Yeah, most definitely. And I see it happening. I know lots of people in the business who are become really hardcore advocates for fitness, health, and well-being, and they're doing different types of work and maybe legislative work. I know that like HFA, they are huge into advocacy. They're going to DC every May. They're fighting the fight all the time. And lots of really great individuals in the Physical Activity Alliance and
Right.
C reps. There's lots of wonderful people doing this work. So I'm seeing lots of good things. I'd like to believe that we're a big part of that too with
Yeah.
mentorship is developing another pillar
Right.
of
Exactly.
essentialism to grow it. I'm a big realist about things and that good things take a long time.
Absolutely.
And I think our business has suffered in many ways because we tried to always push the quick fix, the
Yep.
30-day program, the 60-day, the infomercial, change your life. And really, like life change and real positive change is very generational. It
Yeah.
takes a long fight, a long journey. And although that's very counterintuitive to our
Right.
culture that wants
Yeah.
everything very quickly, like fast food, meat, everything
Yep.
in our
Yep.
lives. So it's going to take a long time, but
Yep.
it's the juice is worth the squeeze. And I really appreciate you giving me some of your time, Aaron. Like seriously, you're an amazing guy. I'm so glad I've met you. We have a very similar pathway, and you've been so good for us. And this again, you are talked about glowingly in our circle. So
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad. You're welcome that we're getting to highlight you. You wanted to do this, and you're part of this team. So thank you so much.
Of course, I appreciate it. I appreciate the work that you are doing and have been doing both in your career as well as the advocacy that I think that's technically what we're all doing is we're all advocates for change, advocates for self-care, and there's going to need to be some advocates for us advocates. And so that's what there's going to need to be some coaches for us coaches. And that's where I hope I can contribute is to continue creating the opportunities, creating that trust and developing further opportunities for younger generations or even those who have the passion to stay in the beginning tiers, the frontline workers of our industry, because those are the people who impact lives. And so I'm very proud to be connected with you, to be connected with IDEA and this fitness mentor network and Debbie and Aaron and the advocate or the advisor group. It's just been a fantastic experience. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate your time, Aaron.
Absolutely.